Brilliant. Seeing as there's so few of us, please just feel free to butt in and ask any questions as we go. That's probably easier. So I'm Julie Young. I'm post-16 advisor at Somerset County Council. My role is just really based around making sure everybody has all the support and guidance they need to make a successful transition into their post-16 life, whether that's education, employment or training. So a lot of the work I do is putting measures in place that will support that transition right from primary school through secondary and then into colleges or wherever they go next. So I'm here today to talk to you about one of our projects that we've recently put in place and are having a really good impact on helping young people who are not currently accessing school for a whole variety of reasons. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I heard about these AV1 robots while I was watching breakfast television, of all things. I thought, well, this could be a really excellent way of helping some of our young people. So I managed to scrimp some money together, and we started very small with just 2 robots. And use those as a case study, just to trial them and see how they went. And we've now ended up with over 50 robots, and they're working really hard across the county to support young people who can't currently access education at school. So if you could move the slide on, Philippa. Great. That's just a publicity picture that we took when we first took receipt of our 50 robots. And as an aside, we've had some amazing publicity from this whole project. So something really positive news story that's been quite welcomed in this year in particular. Okay, next one. This is the actual team of people that have created this robot that I'm going to tell you about. And the lady there in the pink jumper sat on the wall is Karen, whose invention the robot is. She's a Norwegian lady, and she created the robots because one of her best friend's daughters was ill with cancer at the time. And when they were talking with her, she said it's the isolation that was much more difficult to handle as a teenager than the illness. So she set about trying to create something that would enable that her friend's daughter to actually take part in education and also liaise with her friends to stop that social isolation happening. Okay, next slide. So what is an AV1? I've got one here by my side so you can just sort of get a feel for the size of it. It's really nice and compact, sits on the desk, and it's got a carry handle at the back, so it's quite easy and light to transport around. So when they're being used in schools, it's a manageable size, but it's deliberately shaped like a little person robot, and that was done deliberately so that people can connect with it as a person substitute, if you like, rather than just having like a box or a camera. So the AV1 it's a distance learning robot, and it's all about being used as an education and a social tool. So it can be used in school, but we also recommend to our users that they can take it home at the weekends. They can take it to the supermarket, out to a play, on the playing field, etc. So it really enables that young person to keep connected with their community. It becomes the pupil's eyes, ears and voice. As you'll see in a minute, I'll show you around the robot. It's all controlled through an app just that you download from the Play Store, just like any other app, and it can be used on your phone, a smartphone, or on a tablet device. It's all end-to-end encrypted. It's Wi-Fi. It's got a very long battery. It will last the whole school day, and they're manufactured in Norway, so it's a really good quality piece of kit. Okay, so this is how it actually works. The robot has a camera and a loudspeaker, so everything that's going on in the classroom, the student at home or in hospital can actually see through the camera in the robot and through microphones inside the units that picks up everything that's going on in the class. So it's really just like being in the classroom. The robot has a motor in its neck, so you can tilt it up and down, so that when it moves around, you can see right round 360 degrees. It can see down onto the desk to read documents, or it can look up onto the board to see what's going on there. From a teacher's point of view, they know when it's the student is logged on, because it has a white light strip here that shows that the machine is working. And then when the student logs on and starts interacting with the session, its actual light in its head lights up. So it has a light here, so the teacher knows that the student is logged on and taking part in the lesson. The student, through the phone or the tablet, can talk through the speaker as well, so the teacher can ask questions or talk to the student and the student can reply. And there's different levels of volume, so if the student wants to whisper to a friend next door that's sat next to them, they can do that in a whisper mode. If they're wanting to reply to the whole class, there are different levels of volume on the app, so that they can turn their voice up and down. It's all operated through a Wi-Fi, and it has a 4G card in it, so it can either pick up the Wi-Fi within the education establishment, which is what usually happens, but if they're out and about, it's got 4G SIM in as well, so you can pick up a signal and feed that back through that. And a really sort of nice little feature is that the eyes can change. So it has sort of sad eyes or happy eyes or questioning in our eyes. So it just gives it a little bit more personalisation, which the student in particular really like, I think. And when the student wants to ask a question or talk to the member of staff and get their attention, they've got a control that turns the head like a flashing blue, so that the teacher knows that they want to talk to them. So that's basically how it works. It's a really, really simple system. Okay, next slide. Right, this is what the young person sees on their screen, or either on their phone or their tablet, as I say. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's the different levels of volume. Along the bottom there, you can see the different eye expressions that they can actually implement there. And they can put their raise their hand on that black hand button. The little Z's blue button there is if they're in hospital or suddenly not feeling well at home and they're not able to take part in the lesson for a short while, they can turn their head blue to say, actually, I'm not really feeling very well, please don't ask me a question, but I am still here and I am still listening. So all the controls are just touch controls, really, really easy to operate. Okay, thank you. Next slide. So here, if technology allows, there's a video that's just really shows very well how the whole thing operates. Philippa's going to put on for us, I hope.
I'm Sam and the robot is called Mini Sam. He helps me go to school.
When Mini Sam's turned on, what can you see?
The class.
So all your friends in your class. And what normally happens when Mr. Williams turns Mini Sam on?
Morning, Sam.
Hello.
Afternoon, Sam.
So the class has to say hello.
Yeah, and then what do you say back to the class?
Hello.
And what happens if you want to ask something?
I
What do you
put up
do?
my hand
When you put up your hand, how does Mr. Williams know you've got your hand up?
because the AV1 lights its head up.
Sam's got his hand up. Sam?
21 to 5.
21 to 5. Fantastic. So directly across.
My favourite thing about Sam is that I can work with him.
My favourite thing about Sam is that we can talk to him when he's at home.
I think perhaps most importantly for him, it's knowing what's going on during school without getting any germs, and just not feeling left out, feeling like he's still part of the class and that people haven't forgotten him.
Okay. So it just sort of gives you an idea of how they sort of work in practice there. Great, if we can go back to our slides. Have you got any questions so far?
No.
Okay.
No, thanks.
Right, okay. Okay, so as we started implementing our robots, there were sort of quite a lot of questions around GDPR, safeguarding, etc. And so I thought these slides would be useful just to go through that. So with regard to an AV1, only one person can actually link to a robot at any one time. So it can't have multiple users. So from a safeguarding point of view, that's really important. And it's all the actual line between the robots and the phone and the user at home is an encrypted line. It's just like your bank line. So it's really, really safe. And the user, the young person, sets up their own 4-digit PIN code, just like we do with our bank cards. So only they can access it. There is a service level agreement to make sure that nobody else uses it around. And like I said, the eyes and the head, the strip around the body lights up when it's connected. So we always know when somebody's using it. Okay, next slide. Yeah, it's a live stream. The other really important part to note is that it can't be recorded. We had some teachers right at the beginning who are worried about the lessons being able to be recorded and then used back later, or other people being able to look in and do like a secret lesson observation, but that can't happen. It's just a live stream, and if anybody tries to attach it to either a television monitor or a recording device, the whole robot cuts out and it has to be rebooted via no isolation themselves. So it stops the whole thing working basically. And that's explained right at the beginning that you mustn't do that to the student. So because of that encryption, it's a really, really safe piece of kit. Okay. In terms of consent, there is no obligation for the school to get consent from anybody else within the class. So they don't have to apply to other parents in the class or other students. There's no legal obligation to do that. But we do ask all our schools to just weigh up the benefits against any of the risks that they can see to make a decision on whether they think they want to use one. And quite often we found that any concerns are just really have been based around a lack of understanding about how the actual technology works. Once they understand it's encrypted, nobody else can use it. We've found that everybody's been really happy to use a robot. But I think it really is important that a lot of information is sent out to the rest of the parents within the class and to teachers in the school, so that everybody understands how they're used and how safe they are and the advantages of having them. And we found that once the robot's in there, yes, it's a bit of excitement for the first couple of days maybe, but after that it's just that young person in the classroom in a different format. That's all it is, and nobody really takes any notice of it, so which is brilliant, which is what we really want. Okay, thank you. And in terms of the data, No Isolation themselves don't collect any data. They don't ask for any personal data. They never know who's using it. The only data they collect is a contact in the school, so who they can liaise with in making sure that the robot is set up and everything. So it's all completely anonymous, which is really great. Okay, thank you. So these are just a couple of slides that No Isolation have produced, and it really helps in their findings and the work that they've done in using the robots, that it really significantly increases the number of hours that young people access education. So we know that a medical tuition could be just a couple of hours a week. Actually, there is no reason, and we're finding it with our schools, that a young person they can attend all their lessons within a day through the robot, which is significantly makes a huge difference there, really. Okay, next one. If a student is attending a lesson and the teacher feels that they're taking an active part in the lesson, if they ask questions, if they respond to questions that the teacher asks, then the DOV have approved that they can be marked present in the class as attending the class, which really helps to improve attendance rates. So that's another really good benefit of the robots. Next. And this young lady actually achieved 6 GCSEs, and in year 11 she wasn't able to attend school due to her having cancer, but she managed to do all her lessons through the robot. She didn't attend school once and got all her GCSEs. Okay. And this one really summarizes up to me, I think. It's, all about well-being and health. Education is important, but it's the social side of it. The pain is bad, seizures are bad. What's worse is being able to count the number of people you see a day on one hand. And these robots really have the ability to keep young people connected with their school environment, with their friends within school, and being taught by teachers that they know in an environment they know. And I think that's really, really important. Okay, thank you. So I'll just lastly just sort of tell you how we got our project in place. So we started in very small steps. Like I said, we did a small pilot in one area of South Somerset just to test and learn, and also to get some buy-in really from key advocates, heads of schools, deputy heads, Senkos, etc., that could then really help us to promote the idea across the patch. And we wanted some really quick positive case studies, which we managed to get. And it really was about trying to address the need that we could see of increasing mental health and anxiety, the rising number of students moving into elective home education on reduced timetables, and our reduction in high needs funding. So it was all about trying to address some of that. Okay, next slide. So now, like I said, we've got over 50 robots. We've just added a few more in. And we've tried to create a sustainable model so that we don't have to go back and ask for more money. These robots are going to be pay their way. And actually, since I did these slides, we're now on about 48 AV1s that are out there and operational. It's really helping to support young people who aren't able to access school because of COVID. So that's been a real help. We have a traded service in our education department, support services for education, and they manage the system of hire, etc. We've got robots now being used at with every age group, right through, I think age 4 is our youngest person, and we've got many being used by FE colleges now. That's probably our biggest cohort. So you can see there's a huge range, and they're being used really positively over all of those age groups. Thank you. So our bid that we put in, I spent hundreds of hours, it felt like, applying for different pots of funding all over the place, some national, some local. And in the end, ironically, we got funding through our own council. They had an ICT transformation fund that they set up, and we were successful in applying to that. And it was all about preventing isolation, building inclusive and caring communities, unblocking disadvantage, and as well as improving attendance, attainment rates, etc. And it's all very clearly about complementing any medical tuition. It's not about replacing that at all. And it's really helping to get that seamless support out and then back into education. Okay, thank you. So to make them sustainable, there is a fee that you have to pay to No Isolation, a subscription fee. Although the robots we've purchased and they belong to us, there is a subscription fee that we pay to No Isolation to get that 24-hour support service. So to cover those charges that we have to pay to them each year, we've costed the robots out at £100 every 4 weeks, so £25 a week, which we think is really good value for a student being able to access full-time education if they can't get into school. And that covers their subscription and service charges. It also covers delivery and collection. We do that, and we do that through our library service. We're a very rural county, very spread out, and our library vans go past every school within a 2-week period. So the robots can be delivered off through the library service. And that charge also covers invoicing, data requesting, and we also have extra insurance for all the robots. So it doesn't matter if they get damaged or if they get stolen, although we haven't had either yet, thank goodness, but that covers the insurance for that. And a tiny bit goes into a pot so that we can purchase more robots in the future. Okay, thank you. So this was the picture about a week or so ago. It's like I said, we've got more out now. 38 robots, quite interesting, more boys than girls. But 31 out of those 38 were already absent from school with no real support, because only 9 of them had medical tuition arrangements in place. The vast majority didn't. So I think that shows that it can really help, especially in the interim when there's no medical arrangements being put in place. And the reasons for hire, they have to fill in when they apply for a robot. They have to tell us just in a couple of sentences why they want one. We're seeing a lot more robots since COVID of mental health, and especially anxiety, students that aren't able to access school due to anxiety, as well as the usual sort of medical reasons. Just to sort of showcase how we use it for students with anxiety, we're really keen that a robot doesn't become a permanent excuse for never going back to school, because I think that would just be totally unacceptable way of using them. So we work with the schools, and we very much promote and creating an action plan for a young person. So just one example, in our pilot, we had a young girl that wouldn't go to school because of anxiety. So we worked with the parents and the young person and the school to create an action plan. So for the first few weeks, the young person was able to use the robot entirely from home, and she did that really successfully, attended all her lessons. And then after a period of time, it was agreed that she would come into the front office right by the entrance to the school, so she could make a quick getaway if necessary, but she would carry on using the robot but from that front office, and didn't go into classes but carried on with the lessons, and until she was happy with that. And then it was agreed that she would go into her favourite lesson a week, which she did, and then she would also go and meet her friends at playtime and at lunchtime, which she did. And then we gradually increased the number of sessions that she went back into, and within just under 4 months she was back full-time into school, which we saw as a real success. But I think that's really important, that if you're working with students with anxiety, it's not you have that set period of time that you try and work to, and everybody signs up to agree to working on that plan, because it, like I say, it wouldn't be acceptable for a young person really to have a robot for the rest of their education life. That's not what they're about. Okay, next one. What we're doing now is, as people hire the robots, we collect a little bit of data right at the beginning, but we're also now collecting data every 2 months, just so we're getting to get a picture of how effective the robots are and what the students feel about them, and the teachers in the school, and their parents, etc. So it's just really simple data, like, has having the robot helped? Do you feel more supported and less lonely? The impact on the family, and also the impact on their schooling, so their attendance and their attainment rates, etc. And collecting this data was sort of part of the deal with getting the funding, but we feel it will give us some really good insights into what's going on out there and how best to support these young people. We launched the robots really from December last year, and of course when we went into lockdown, it's a bit of a kibosh on collecting the data, because suddenly everybody was isolated and nobody was at school, so we sort of stopped using them for while that was happening. But since September in particular, the robots have gone down really well. So we're just in this again now, starting to ramp up collecting the data after we've had this COVID break. Okay, and that's just another little picture of the robots in our publicity. And I think that's probably it. That's my contact details, and I'm really happy to talk to anybody in more depth about how we did it and how we've implemented it, some of the materials we've produced, etc. So please do feel free to contact me at any time. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions or observations. Hi, Siobhan.
Yeah, hi. I work in Cambridgeshire. They sound brilliant. I was just wondering if they were something. So we have a lot of personal budgets, whether it was something that people might be able to buy as a one-off to use, or does it have to be as part of a big package?
No, it can be as a one-off. No, that's absolutely fine. And no isolation in the last 6 months, I think. They've actually done their own hire scheme, so people can go direct to them and hire them from them themselves. Okay. So if you go onto noisolation.com, see all the details there.
Brilliant. And have you used them much, or have you got much experience of using them with children who with special educational needs, who maybe are on part-time timetables or that kind of thing? Yeah. I mean, that we've got such a wide range of use, from young people that aren't going in at all to some that can only do a couple of days a week, and are on reduced timetables. We've even got people that the 4-year-old that I mentioned, he was actually excluded age 4, but his family are involved in county lines, so they really worried about him being at home, so they carry on bringing him into school, and he's working in a separate room, but with a robot, so he's safe. And so there's loads of different uses. It's sky's the limit, really. In terms of hiring, this is Lily speaking.
Yes, hi, Lily.
Yeah, in terms of hiring, does it need to come from the parents or the school, or is it something that's got to the school and the family working together to hire one? I'm not sure how does it.
It's up to individual counties. The schools hire them in Somerset. They have used some of their funding that they have to support young people, and they pay the fee. Although some schools, we've got some very, very tiny primary schools, so they use their parent associations have fundraised to pay for it. And I think in some schools the parents are so keen to have one that they will have made arrangements themselves with the schools to sort of contribute to that. But to us, the payment comes via the school, so we just invoice them out.
So, have you had any children or young people who it's been part of their education, health and care plan and funded that way? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 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 So, I mean, it's up to the school to work out how best to fund it. But compared to, some of the costs of medical tuition, it's a very reasonable alternative, or
oh yeah, absolutely. You can get a month for an hour's tuition almost, couldn't you, sometimes?
And the thing that I really love about it is that that those young people are getting their normal tuition from their normal teachers. I think you can't underestimate the impact of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just wondering if the schools are they aware of the AVI? Do they know about this? Because I'm not sure if in the wider forum if the schools know about this trip. Because if not, I think I live in Croydon, so I've not heard anything about this. Today's my first.
I mean, I must admit, like 3 or 4 years ago, when I saw them on breakfast television, I thought I've got to have one of those. That's going to be perfect. But I'm not, No Isolation do a lot of promotion of them, but of course you've got to go. But I mean, in your authorities, your areas, I'm really happy to either put you in touch with No Isolation people, or come and talk to. I spend hours talking to different people all across the country, which is really interesting. So please do ask me. I'm really happy to come and talk about how we use them. If you want, people to know about them in where you are.
Because it can be quite useful at the moment. I know there's been 2 breaks because of COVID, from school. So 2 slots of 2 weeks out from school, 4 weeks of, losing some education, which is quite huge. So with this, I think there wouldn't be any loss, and it will save the teachers time as well.
Yeah, because they don't have to prepare anything different,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just like business as normal, but with a robot sat on your desk instead of that young person. It can just save everybody so much time and effort.
On that note, Julie, I'm going to jump in and say thank you very much for that. That was really, really interesting. And I think the scope for that is enormous. So you will get the slides and there will be the recording. So you will have Julie's contact details, everyone who's here and anyone who wasn't able to join this workshop as well. I'm very keen that you get a break before you go into your next one. So please do take a break, stretch your legs and get away from your screen and rejoin your next workshop at 12:40.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Julia. That was really interesting.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you.